Caitlyn pulls left wing, the right wing, 30-plus feet. Logo cross.
Stop everything you're doing, because what I'm about to tell you will fundamentally change how you see sports, how you see stardom, how you see power. There's a woman right now, at this very moment, who is breaking records she's not even eligible to break. She's generating wealth she's not even trying to generate. She's reshaping an entire industry while sitting in a chair, watching, waiting. And no, this isn't some billionaire CEO. This isn't a tech mogul pulling strings from a penthouse. This is a 23-year-old basketball player from Iowa. Her name? Caitlyn Clark. And here's what's absolutely insane. Two massive, undeniable signs just emerged, literally in the last 72 hours, that prove her influence isn't just growing, it's about to detonate. We're talking about a seismic shift that's already sending shockwaves through boardrooms, locker rooms, and living rooms across America. We're talking about numbers that don't make sense, patterns that defy logic, and a cultural phenomenon that every single sports analyst failed to predict. See, most people think they understand the Caitlyn Clark story. Oh, she's popular. She broke some college records. She's good at women's basketball. Wrong. Dead wrong. That's like saying the iPhone was a nice phone. What's happening right now isn't popular. It's not a trend. It's not even a movement. It's a complete reordering of the sports universe. And the craziest part? The two signs I'm about to reveal don't just suggest this is happening. They prove it with cold, hard, undeniable data. The first sign involves a company that has never, in its 30-year history, seen anything like this. Second sign involves billions of dollars and a decision that has every major sports network scrambling behind closed doors. But here's what nobody is talking about. These two signs aren't random. They're connected. When you see how they're connected, you'll realize that what's coming in 2026 isn't just a moment. The moment everything changes. So before I break down exactly what these signs are and why they're about to make Caitlyn Clark the most valuable athlete in American sports, you need to understand something first. Something that happened just weeks ago. Something that made industry insiders lose their minds. Because when PSA, the gold standard of sports collectibles, released their 2025 report, data didn't just surprise people, it terrified them. Not because of what Caitlyn Clark achieved, but because of who she just defeated. LeBron James. 4 championships, 4 MVP awards, 22 years of absolute dominance. The all-time leading scorer in NBA history. Billionaire athlete. Global icon. And Caitlyn Clark just beat him. Not on a basketball court. Not in some made-up online poll. Not in a popularity contest run by fans with too much time. She beat him in the one place that matters most in modern sports culture. Marketplace. Let me explain exactly what happened, because the implications are staggering. PSA, for those who don't know, is the company that grades and authenticates trading cards. They're the gatekeepers of the entire sports collectibles industry. When PSA says a card is valuable, banks will literally give you loans against it. When PSA releases their annual data, billion-dollar investment firms adjust their portfolios. This isn't child's play. This is real money, real power, real cultural weight. And their 2025 report just confirms something that should be impossible. Caitlyn Clark became the #1 most collected active basketball player on the planet. Read that again. Not the #1 female basketball player. Not the #1 college player. Not the #1 rookie. #1 basketball player. Period. She didn't edge out the competition. She didn't barely squeak by. She absolutely obliterated every single active NBA player on earth. Kevin Durant? Behind her. Stephen Curry? Behind her. Giannis Antetokounmpo? Not even close. Here's where it gets truly mind-bending. When this happened, when collectors around the world made their choices, spent their money, placed their bets on the future, Caitlyn Clark wasn't dropping 40-point triple-doubles. She wasn't hitting game-winning shots. She wasn't even playing. She was injured, sidelined, watching from the bench in street clothes. Think about that for a second. LeBron James, healthy, active, still performing at an elite level, got outpaced by a woman who couldn't even step on the court. What does that tell you? It tells you that Caitlyn Clark's value has completely detached from her on-court performance. This has never happened before. Not with Jordan. Not with Kobe. Not with anyone. Those legends built their collectible empires through decades of championships, iconic moments, and sustained excellence. Their cards became valuable because of what they did on the court. Caitlyn Clark is doing the opposite. Her cards are becoming valuable because of what she represents. She promises, what people believe she's going to become. Collectors aren't buying her cards based on her current stats. They're buying based on potential, based on trajectory, based on a future they can see coming like a freight train. And when the sports investment community, people who make their living predicting value, when they put their money on Caitlyn Clark over LeBron James, that's not a fluke. That's a forecast. Here's what makes this even crazier. PSA data? That's just sign number one. Sign number two is about to drop. It involves something much bigger than trading cards. It involves television rights, broadcasting deals, and a decision that could be worth billions. $11 billion. That's the number floating around behind closed doors right now. That's the number making television executives sweat through their expensive suits. That's the number that proves Caitlyn Clark isn't just changing basketball. She's changing the business of sports itself. Let me take you inside something most people will never see. Right now, as you're watching this video, negotiations are happening in conference rooms across America. ESPN, BC, Amazon, CBS. Every major media player is fighting over one thing. Next WNBA broadcasting rights deal. And here's why this matters so much. Current deal was signed years ago before Caitlyn Clark became Caitlyn Clark. Was worth around $60 million per year. Solid money. Respectable. But nothing compared to the men's leagues. The new deal being negotiated right now, industry insiders are projecting it could reach $200 million per year or more. Some analysts are whispering numbers as high as $300 million annually. That's not growth. That's an explosion. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. This massive increase, this unprecedented surge in value, isn't happening because the WNBA suddenly got better at basketball. The talent level has always been elite. Competition has always been fierce. Skill has always been world-class. So what changed? Single player. Every network executive knows it. Every advertiser knows it. Every investor knows it. Caitlyn Clark's rookie season didn't just set attendance records. It didn't just boost television ratings. It fundamentally repriced an entire league. Let me hit you with some numbers that will make your head spin. Before Caitlyn Clark entered the WNBA, the league's average viewership was around 400,000 viewers per game. Respectable. Steady. Sustainable. Rookie season? Games featuring the Indiana Fever started pulling 2 million viewers. Some primetime matchups exceeded 3 million. That's not a percentage increase. That's a 500% surge. Advertisers? They pay based on eyeballs. More viewers means more value. More value means bigger checks. Bigger checks mean the entire economic model transforms. This is what people don't understand about the Caitlyn Clark effect. It's not just about her. It's about what she unlocks. Every WNBA player's salary is about to increase because of her. Every women's basketball program is about to get more funding because of her. Every young girl watching at home is about to see more opportunities because of her. She's not just building a career. She's building an ecosystem. And the broadcasting companies? They're terrified of one thing. Missing out. Because whoever wins this bidding war, whoever secures the WNBA rights for the next decade, they're essentially betting that Caitlyn Clark's influence will keep growing. They're betting she'll stay healthy, stay dominant, stay captivating. They're betting billions on a 23-year-old woman from Iowa. And based on what just leaked from the negotiation rooms, numbers are higher than anyone predicted. But that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part is who just entered the bidding war. A company that has never, in its entire history, shown interest in live women's sports. Their offer is making everyone else panic. Apple, the trillion-dollar tech giant that revolutionized music, phones, and entertainment, is now making moves in a space they've never touched before. Women's basketball. And their interest isn't casual. It's aggressive. Now, let me be clear about something. Apple doesn't dabble. Apple doesn't experiment. When Apple enters a market, they enter to dominate. They did it with smartphones. They did it with streaming. They did it with podcasts. Now, according to multiple industry sources, they're circling the WNBA broadcasting rights like a shark smelling blood in the water. Because Tim Cook and his team see something that traditional networks are just starting to understand. Caitlyn Clark isn't just an athlete. She's a content engine. Think about what Apple TV Plus needs right now. They've got prestige dramas. They've got award-winning films. They've got star-studded documentaries. But what they don't have, what they desperately need, is appointment viewing. Live content that people must watch in real time. Content that can't be binged later. Content that creates cultural moments. Sports is the last frontier of must-see television. And within sports, there's one property that's growing faster than anything else. WNBA. And within the WNBA, there's one player driving 80% of that growth. You already know her name. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. ESPN currently holds the WNBA rights. They've been the home of women's basketball for years. They want to keep it that way, desperately. Their parent company, Disney, is bleeding money. Budget cuts everywhere. Thus, restructuring. They're not in a position to overpay for anything. They're Apple. Apple has $160 billion in cash reserves. It could buy the WNBA rights for the next century and not even notice the expense. Money is not an object. Victory is the object. When a company with unlimited resources decides they want something, everyone else scrambles. Here's where this gets really interesting. Apple's potential entry into the WNBA bidding war isn't just about basketball. It's about strategy. If Apple secures these rights, they'll bundle WNBA games with Apple TV+. Suddenly, every Caitlyn Clark fan, every casual viewer, needs an Apple subscription to watch. That's millions of new subscribers. Millions of new customers in the Apple ecosystem. Millions of people who might then buy AirPods, iPhones, MacBooks. Caitlyn Clark becomes a gateway drug to Apple's entire product line. And this is what separates her from every other athlete in history. Michael Jordan sold sneakers. LeBron James sells entertainment. Tom Brady sold championships. Caitlyn Clark? She sells futures. The future of women's sports. The future of media rights. The future of how we consume athletics. Every company fighting over her isn't just buying access to a basketball player. They're buying access to a cultural movement. A movement with no ceiling in sight. The Apple rumors? Broadcasting war? Billions at stake? That's still not the most shocking part of this story. Because while everyone's focused on the money, something else is happening. Something quieter. Something that Caitlyn Clark herself just revealed in a rare, unguarded moment. When you hear what she said, what she's planning, you'll understand why 2026 might be the biggest year in women's sports history. She wasn't supposed to say it. The interview was wrapping up. Cameras were still rolling, but the formal questions had ended. That's when the reporter asked something casual, almost throwaway. What's your biggest goal for 2026? Caitlyn Clark paused, smiled, and then said 7 words that sent shockwaves through the basketball world. I want to change everything. For everyone. Now most athletes say things like this. Generic motivational phrases. Empty sound bites designed to please sponsors and avoid controversy. Caitlyn Clark isn't like most athletes. When she speaks, things happen. When she sets goals, she obliterates them. When she makes promises, she delivers. But when insiders heard those 7 words, they started digging, asking questions, connecting dots. What do they find? It's bigger than anyone imagined. Let me paint you a picture of what 2026 looks like. The WNBA will have its new broadcasting deal locked in, worth hundreds of millions more than ever before. Salaries across the league will have increased dramatically. New franchises will be launching in major markets. That's just the foundation. Real earthquake? It's the global expansion Caitlyn Clark is quietly positioning herself to lead. Here's what most people don't know. The 2026 FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup is happening. It's the biggest international women's basketball event outside the Olympics. For the first time in decades, there's genuine global buzz around Team USA. Not because of the team's legacy. Not because of the coaching staff. Because of her. International viewership projections for any game featuring Caitlyn Clark are through the roof. Countries that have never cared about women's basketball, China, Brazil, Spain, Australia, are suddenly paying attention. Sponsors are lining up. Broadcasting rights internationally are being renegotiated. Merchandise deals are expanding to markets that were never viable before. And here's the strategic genius nobody's talking about. Caitlyn Clark's team knows exactly what they're doing. Every social media post, every interview clip, every candid moment. It's all engineered to build a global brand, not just an American one. Her Instagram following includes massive numbers from Europe and Asia. Her highlight clips get translated and shared in dozens of languages. Her playing style, flashy, exciting, accessible, translates across cultures in a way that technical basketball often doesn't. She's not just becoming America's athlete. She's becoming the world's athlete. Think about what that means for women's sports. For decades, female athletes have struggled for international recognition. The infrastructure wasn't there. The investment wasn't there. The attention wasn't there. Caitlyn Clark is building all 3 simultaneously. She's doing it not by demanding attention, but by commanding it. By being so undeniably excellent, so impossibly captivating, that the world has no choice but to watch. Every young girl in Tokyo is watching her highlights. Every teenager in Sao Paulo buys her jersey. Every aspiring athlete in London dreams bigger because of her. It's not just sports. It's legacy. But here's the thing about building something this massive. There are people who don't want it to succeed. People who profit from the old system. people who feel threatened by change, people who've spent their careers betting against women's sports. And right now, some of those people are pushing back. In fact, just last week, a major sports network executive made comments, off the record, that have insiders furious. Comments about Caitlyn Clark. Comments about women's basketball. Comments so controversial that if they ever went public, it'd spark a war. Guess what? It just leaked. It's a bubble. It'll burst. And when it does, we'll be right back where we started. Those words, spoken by a senior executive at a major sports network, were never meant to leave that conference room. They did. Now, the internet is on fire. Let me set the scene for what happened. 2 weeks ago, a closed-door meeting took place at one of the biggest media companies in America. The topic? The WNBA broadcasting rights and whether the projected valuations were realistic. According to sources who were present, most executives were bullish, optimistic, ready to compete aggressively for the rights. But one voice dissented, loudly. This is all built on one player, the executive allegedly said. What happens when she gets injured? What happens when she declines? What happens when the novelty wears off? He then made the bubble comment. Someone in that room recorded it. Within 48 hours, the audio leaked to sports media insiders. It spread through group chats, private messages, and encrypted channels. By the time it reached social media, it was a wildfire. Reactions were immediate and brutal. Fans were outraged. Players were livid. Sponsors started making phone calls, asking questions the network didn't want to answer. Is this how you really feel about women's sports? Is this the company we want to be associated with? You understand what you've just done? But here's what makes this so much more than just another media controversy. The executive wasn't entirely wrong about the facts. He was asking a legitimate business question, one that investors and executives should consider. What happens if Caitlyn Clark gets injured long-term? What happens if her performance declines? What happens if another sport steals the spotlight? These are real risks, real concerns, real variables. Here's where he, and everyone who thinks like him, made a catastrophic miscalculation. They're still thinking about Caitlyn Clark as a player. She stopped being just a player a long time ago. She's now a movement, a symbol, a catalyst for something far bigger than herself. Movements don't die when one person gets injured. Movements don't disappear when one player ages. Movements take on lives of their own. Jackie Robinson didn't just break the color barrier. He sparked a revolution that continued long after his career ended. Billie Jean King didn't just win tennis matches. She changed the entire landscape of women's athletics. Caitlyn Clark is doing the same thing. Right now. In real time. The executive's mistake was thinking in old paradigms. In the old model, sports value was directly tied to its biggest star's current performance. When Michael Jordan retired the first time, NBA ratings dropped. When Tiger Woods struggled, golf viewership declined. That model assumed scarcity. One star, one attraction, one reason to watch. Caitlyn Clark has created abundance. She's brought millions of new fans to women's basketball. Fans who are now discovering other players, other storylines, other reasons to stay engaged. Aya Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Angel Reese. These players were always elite, always talented, always worthy of attention. Caitlyn Clark opened the door. Now the entire room is filling up. The network executive didn't just insult one player. He insulted an entire ecosystem that's growing with or without his approval. The fallout? Just beginning. Because within 72 hours of the leak, something unprecedented happened. 2 major sponsors pulled their advertising from the network. A prominent female athlete, not Caitlyn Clark, issued a public statement calling for accountability. Then, silence. The network went dark. No statements. No apologies. No explanations. Until yesterday, when they made an announcement that nobody saw coming. They didn't apologize. They didn't fire the executive. They did something far more surprising. They doubled down and announced a $500 million commitment to women's sports programming over the next 5 years. Read that again. The same network whose executive called women's basketball a bubble just pledged $500 million to prove him wrong. From the outside, it looks like damage control. A desperate attempt to stop the bleeding. A PR move designed to quiet the critics. But insiders are saying something different. They're saying this was already in the works. That the executive's comments, while embarrassing, actually accelerated a plan that had been developing for months. And at the center of that plan, one name kept appearing in every internal document. Caitlyn Clark. Here's what the leaked memos revealed. The network had been tracking women's basketball metrics for over 2 years. viewership trends, social media engagement, merchandise sales, advertising demand. Every single indicator was pointing in one direction. Not gradually, not incrementally, exponentially. And the projections for 2026 and beyond? They were so aggressive that some executives initially thought the data was wrong. It wasn't. $500 million commitment breaks down like this. $200 million for expanded WNBA coverage and production quality. State-of-the-art graphics. More cameras. Better commentary teams. Full premium treatment. $150 million for women's college basketball rights. March Madness coverage. Regular season games. Shoulder programming and analysis shows. $100 million for documentary content. Player profiles. Behind-the-scenes access. The kind of storytelling that turned The Last Dance into a cultural phenomenon. $50 million for grassroots development. Youth leagues. High school showcases. Investing in the next generation of stars. You understand what's happening here? Single leaked comment, born from doubt and dismissal, just accelerated the very thing it was trying to undermine. The executive said women's basketball was a bubble. The market responded by pouring more money into it. The executive said it was all built on one player. The network responded by investing in an entire ecosystem designed to create dozens of players with Caitlyn Clark's star power. This is the part that should terrify every skeptic. The investment isn't just about Caitlyn Clark's career. It's about creating a sustainable infrastructure that will outlast any individual player. Better production means more viewers. More viewers means more advertisers. More advertisers means more revenue. More revenue means higher salaries. Higher salaries means better talent retention. Better talent means better competition. Better competition means more viewers. It's a flywheel. And Caitlyn Clark just gave it the initial spin. But here's what makes this even more significant. This was just one network. What happens when ESPN responds? What happens when Amazon counters? What happens when Apple makes their move? We're not looking at $500 million anymore. We're looking at billions flowing into women's sports over the next decade. And all of this, every dollar, every deal, every commitment, traces back to one source. A girl from Des Moines who started shooting hoops in her driveway before she could tie her shoes. But what most people don't know is what almost stopped her journey before it ever began. A decision she made at 16 years old. Crossroads that could have sent her down a completely different path. Story she's never fully told until now. She almost quit. Not basketball. Something else. Something that would have changed everything. At 16 years old, Caitlyn Clark stood at a crossroads that would define not just her career, but the entire future of women's sports. And almost nobody knows this story. Let me take you back to 2018. Caitlyn Clark was already a phenomenon in Iowa high school basketball. Scoring records were falling. College coaches were circling. The future seemed written in permanent ink. But behind the headlines, something was happening. Something that almost derailed everything. See, Caitlyn wasn't just good at basketball. She was exceptional at multiple sports. Soccer, volleyball, tennis, whatever she touched, she dominated. And at 16, she received an offer that most young athletes would never dream of refusing. A prestigious soccer academy, one with direct pipelines to professional leagues and Olympic teams, wanted her. Full scholarship, elite training, clear path to international competition. Catch. She'd have to give up basketball. Completely. Think about what that decision meant for a teenager. Soccer offered certainty, structured pathway, guaranteed opportunities. The academy had produced Olympic athletes, professional stars, and international champions. Basketball offered what exactly? The WNBA in 2018 wasn't what it is today. Average salaries were low. Media coverage was minimal. The path from college star to professional icon was narrow and uncertain. Financially, strategically, logically, soccer made more sense. But what happened? According to those close to the family, Caitlyn spent weeks wrestling with the decision. Sleepless nights, long conversations with her parents, pros and cons lists that never seemed to balance. And then one evening, her father asked her a simple question. When you close your eyes and imagine yourself at 25, what do you see? She didn't hesitate. A basketball court, packed arena. People are screaming my name. He nodded. Then why are we even having this conversation? That moment, that single exchange, changed history. Not because her father gave her the answer, but because he helped her realize she already had the answer. Deep down, beyond logic, beyond strategy. She didn't choose basketball because it was the smart choice. She chose it because it was her choice. Because something inside her knew, if Before the data, before the records, before any of this, that basketball was where she belonged. Now think about where we are today. Every rating record she's breaking. Every investment deal being signed. Every young girl picking up a basketball instead of a soccer ball. All of it traces back to a 16-year-old's gut feeling. Feeling that defied logic. Defied the numbers. Defied everything the world told her about what was possible for women in basketball. This is what separates transcendent athletes from great ones. Great athletes make smart decisions. Transcendent athletes make authentic ones. They trust something beyond analysis. Something that can't be measured or projected or calculated. Caitlyn Clark trusted that feeling at 16. Now the entire sports world is rearranging itself because she did. But here's the haunting question nobody asks. What if she had chosen soccer? What if the WNBA never got its rocket fuel? What if women's basketball stayed stuck in its old economic model? What if the billions now flowing into the sport went somewhere else? One teenager's decision. One conversation with her father. One moment of clarity. The entire trajectory of women's sports, hanging on a thread that thin. That brings us to something happening right now. Something that proves Caitlyn Clark's influence extends far beyond anything she does on the court. Because across America, a new generation of young girls is making the same choice she made. Except now, they're choosing basketball because of her. The numbers? They're absolutely staggering. What's happening in youth sports right now will blow your mind. 47%. That's the number that has youth sports organizations scrambling to keep up. 47% increase in girls basketball registrations since Caitlyn Clark entered the WNBA. Not 4.7%. Not 14%. 47%. Let me put this into perspective. Youth sports participation has been declining in America for over a decade. Soccer, baseball, football, swimming. Across nearly every major sport, fewer kids are signing up each year. Reasons are complicated. Video games, overscheduling, cost barriers, burnout from early specialization. Experts have written thousands of articles trying to solve this problem. Millions of dollars spent on initiatives to get kids active again. And then Caitlyn Clark showed up. The numbers don't lie. Youth basketball leagues across the country are reporting waitlists for the first time in years. Equipment manufacturers can't keep girls' basketballs in stock. Hoop installations and driveways have surged. One major retailer reported a 300% increase in adjustable basketball systems marketed toward young girls. AAU programs, the elite travel basketball circuits, are seeing record registration numbers for their girls' divisions. Record numbers. Not since the 1996 Olympics, when the U.S. women's basketball team captured America's attention, has there been anything close to this level of youth engagement. And that spike lasted 2, maybe 3 years. It's accelerating. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Let me tell you about Maya. Maya is 11 years old, lives in a small town in Nebraska. Never showed much interest in sports until last year. Her mother, in an interview with a local news station, described what happened. She saw Caitlyn Clark hit a half-court shot on TV. Just stopped what she was doing and stared. Didn't say anything for like 30 seconds. Then she turned to me and said, "Mom, I want to do that." 2 weeks later, Maya was enrolled in basketball camp. 6 months later, she was the starting point guard on her school team. 1 year later, she's practicing 3 hours a day and talking about playing college basketball. Maya's story isn't unique. It's being repeated thousands of times across America. Big cities and small towns. In wealthy suburbs and underserved communities. Wherever there's a screen showing Caitlyn Clark highlights. I want to do that. 4 words. Spoken by thousands of young girls. Changing the trajectory of thousands of lives. And here's what makes this so powerful from a long-term perspective. These girls, the ones signing up for basketball right now, they're not just future players. They're future fans. Future ticket buyers. Future merchandise purchasers. Future viewers who will tune in for decades because they grew up loving the sport. The WNBA isn't just gaining athletes. It's cultivating an audience that will sustain the league for generations. Smart investors understand this. Broadcasting rights deals being negotiated right now, they're not just based on current viewership. They're based on projected viewership 5, 10, 20 years from now. And those projections all include one massive variable. The Caitlyn Clark generation. Millions of young girls will grow up with women's basketball as a natural part of their sports diet. Not a secondary option. Not an afterthought. Primary passion. But here's the question that keeps league executives up at night. What happens when these girls grow up? What happens when they demand more games, more coverage, more investment? What happens when an entire generation, raised on Caitlyn Clark highlights, starts making purchasing decisions, voting with their wallets, shaping culture with their attention? The answer is already emerging. Because the oldest members of the Caitlyn Clark generation aren't little kids anymore. Some of them are teenagers now. Others are entering college. Few are already entering the workforce, with money to spend and loyalty to express. And they're about to make their voices heard in a way that will shock the sports establishment. What they're planning for 2026 could be the largest coordinated fan movement in sports history. They call themselves the 22s, named after Caitlyn Clark's jersey number. Organized across Discord servers, TikTok groups, and Instagram communities, hundreds of thousands of young fans united by one mission: to make 2026 the year women's basketball becomes impossible to ignore. This isn't your typical fan club. 22s operate like a movement: strategic, coordinated, relentless. They have media teams creating viral content, research teams tracking ratings and engagement data, advocacy teams reaching out to sponsors and broadcasters. Average age? 19 years old. Average passion level? Off the charts. Their plan for 2026 is audacious. First, they're organizing a massive attendance push. Goal? Fill every single WNBA arena to capacity for the entire season. Not just fever games. Every game. Every team. They're creating travel pods, groups of fans who coordinate trips to away games, turning neutral arenas into home crowds for the movement itself. Second, they're targeting advertisers directly. Not with boycotts. Support. They've compiled lists of every company advertising during WNBA broadcasts. Members are encouraged to buy from those companies, write positive reviews, and publicly thank them on social media. You invest in women's basketball? We invest in you. It's the opposite of cancel culture. It celebrates culture. Third, and this is where it gets really interesting, they're going after the metrics. Modern sports broadcasting lives and dies by engagement data. Not just viewership, but social media mentions, streaming numbers, app downloads, merchandise sales. 22s have created systems to maximize every metric. Watch parties synchronized across time zones. Coordinated hashtag campaigns during games. Mass purchasing of jerseys on specific dates to spike sales charts. They're gaming the algorithm in favor of women's basketball. But here's what separates the 22s from typical online movements. They're not angry. They're not combative. They're not defined by what they're against. They're defined by what they love. Listen to how they talk about Caitlyn Clark. She showed us what's possible. She made us believe. She didn't just play basketball. She gave us permission to dream bigger. This isn't fandom. This is identity. And that's what makes 2026 so potentially explosive. When fandom becomes identity, consumption patterns change permanently. People don't abandon their identities. They double down on them. Every member of the 22s who builds their social life around women's basketball, who makes friends through watch parties, who finds community in these Discord servers, they're not casual viewers who might drift away. They're lifers. Step back for a moment. Look at everything we've discussed. The PSA trading card data proving Caitlyn Clark's cultural dominance. Billion-dollar broadcasting wars reshaping media. The leaked executive comments accelerating investment. The origin story that almost never happened. Youth participation explosion changed demographics. Now, an organized fan movement preparing to flex unprecedented collective power. Every thread connects. Every development reinforces the others. This isn't a trend. This isn't hype. This isn't a bubble. This is a transformation. Structural. Permanent. Unstoppable. And at the center of it all stands one person. 23-year-old woman who just wanted to play basketball. Who chose authenticity over strategy at 16. Who dominated college like nobody before. Who entered a league that couldn't contain her impact. Who attracted investors, sponsors, fans, and movements she never asked for. Caitlyn Clark didn't set out to change the world. She just played her game. The world changed around her. So when people ask, can anyone stop the Caitlyn Clark effect? The answer is clear. Because it's no longer about her. It's about the millions of girls shooting hoops in driveways tonight. Executives are rewriting their business models. Fans are organizing for 2026. The infrastructure being built. The culture being reshaped. The effect has become the cause. The wave has become the ocean. The most incredible part? We're still in the early chapters. 2026 isn't the climax of this story. It's just the beginning. What comes after? Where does this movement go when it reaches full maturity? How big can women's basketball actually become? Nobody knows for certain. But if the signs we've seen are any indication, we haven't seen anything yet. If this video opened your eyes to what's happening in women's basketball, smash that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because the Caitlyn Clark story is moving fast, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Drop a comment below. What do you think 2026 will bring? See you in the next one.